I want you to think about the last time you stopped somewhere at 2 in the morning, alone, without really thinking about it as a decision at all. Most long drives eventually require it. You are tired, your bladder or your gas tank or your own body simply insists, and a rest stop appears on the horizon at exactly the moment you need one, and you pull in without giving the choice much weight, because what choice is there, really? You need to stop. The rest stop is there. You stop. I want to tell you about the one time that ordinary, unremarkable decision very nearly cost me everything. My name doesn't matter for this story. What matters is that I am a 26-year-old man, and 14 months ago I was driving home from a friend's wedding in Nashville, Tennessee, back to my apartment outside Louisville, Kentucky, a drive of a little over 2 hours that I had planned to make late at night, specifically because I wanted to avoid daytime traffic and be home in my own bed before work the next morning. This is the story of what was waiting for me when I stopped along the way. I want to say before anything else that I have always considered myself a fairly cautious person by nature, not paranoid, but attentive. I lock my car doors the moment I get in. I don't leave valuables visible on seats. I've had the standard conversations about safety that most people have at some point in their lives, and I genuinely believed going into that night that I had a reasonable working sense of what caution looked like. What happened at that rest stop taught me that caution and awareness are not quite the same thing, and that the gap between them can be closed in about 20 seconds. It was a little after 1:30 in the morning when I saw the sign for the rest stop, about 90 minutes into the drive. I was tired in the specific heavy way that comes from a full day of wedding festivities followed by a late-night solo drive, and my gas gauge was low enough that stopping felt less like a choice and more like a simple logistical necessity. I had stopped at this same rest area a handful of times before, on other late-night drives along that same corridor. It was a standard state-maintained rest stop, a parking lot, a small building with restrooms and vending machines, a scattering of picnic tables, sodium lights that cast everything in that particular orange-tinted glow rest stops always seem to have. When I pulled in, there were maybe 6 or 7 other cars scattered across the lot, most of them dark, presumably other travelers sleeping through the night rather than continuing to drive exhausted. Nothing about the scene struck me as unusual. I parked toward the middle of the lot under one of the lights and went inside to use the restroom and grab a coffee from the vending machine. I want you to remember exactly where I parked, because it matters for what happened next. I was inside for maybe 10 minutes total, long enough to use the restroom, get my coffee from a vending machine that took 3 tries to accept my card, and check my phone for messages from friends still at the wedding reception I'd left a couple hours earlier. Nothing about those 10 minutes felt significant while they were happening. That is, I think, the specific quality of the moments right before something goes wrong. They do not announce themselves. They simply pass, ordinary and forgettable, exactly the way thousands of other 10-minute stretches of your life have passed without incident. I walked back out into the parking lot, coffee in hand, keys already out, doing the small automatic scan of the lot that I think most people do without fully realizing it, checking in a general, unfocused way that nothing looks obviously wrong before you cross an open space at night. Nothing looked obviously wrong. I started walking toward my car. It was only when I got within maybe 20 feet of it that I registered a shape near the driver's side door that had not been there 10 minutes earlier. A man was standing directly beside my driver's side door, not walking past it, not near his own vehicle doing something unrelated to mine, standing there, motionless, close enough to the door that there was no reasonable, innocent explanation for his position that I could construct in the few seconds I had to consider it. I stopped walking. I stood there, in the middle of that mostly empty parking lot, coffee still in my hand, my car keys in the other, trying to decide what to do with a very small amount of information and a very large amount of adrenaline suddenly moving through my body. He did not move toward me. He did not say anything. He simply stood there, beside my car, watching me watch him, in a stillness that felt, even from 20 feet away, deliberate rather than accidental. I thought, in that first frozen moment, about walking backward toward the rest stop building instead. I thought about the 6 or 7 other vehicles scattered across the lot, wondering whether any of them held someone awake enough to help if I needed it, wondering whether shouting would accomplish anything at 2 in the morning in a mostly empty parking lot along a rural highway corridor. I did not walk toward my car. I turned calmly and walked back toward the lit entrance of the rest stop building instead. I want to describe as precisely as I can the specific mental process that got me to that decision, because I think it matters more than the decision itself. My body wanted to keep walking forward, toward the car, toward the familiar, toward the thing that represented getting home faster. There is a strong pull in moments like that toward simply continuing whatever you were already doing, because stopping and reversing course feels socially awkward even when there is no one obviously watching to judge you for it. I had to consciously override that pull. I had to tell myself, in the space of maybe 2 seconds, that feeling embarrassed for overreacting was an acceptable cost, and that whatever discomfort came with turning around was nothing compared to what might come from walking directly up to a stranger, positioned exactly where he was. I walked back inside, my heart rate high enough that I could feel it in my throat, and I stood just inside the glass doors where I could watch the parking lot without being directly exposed to it. He had not moved. He was still standing beside my car in exactly the same position, watching the entrance of the building the way you watch something you are waiting for. I called 911 from just inside those doors, my voice lower than I meant it to be, some instinct telling me not to be overheard, even though there was no one else visibly nearby to overhear me. I explained where I was, what I was seeing, and that I did not feel safe approaching my own vehicle. The dispatcher kept me on the line, asking me to describe him as clearly as I could. Height, build, clothing, anything distinctive, while confirming that a state trooper was already being routed to the rest stop, having been notified, she mentioned, almost in passing, of another call about that same rest stop earlier that evening. I asked her what she meant by that. She told me she couldn't share full details, but that this was not the first report from that specific rest stop that evening. I stood there, watching a stranger stand motionless beside my car in the middle of the night, absorbing the fact that I might not be the first person he had done this to that same night. The wait for the trooper felt considerably longer than the 12 minutes the dispatcher had estimated. I stayed on the phone with her the entire time, narrating small updates. He was still standing there. He had not approached the building. Another car had pulled into the lot, and he had not reacted to it in any way that suggested he was simply a confused traveler waiting for someone. At one point, a woman walked out of the restroom section of the building behind me, heading toward her own car parked on the opposite side of the lot for mine. I stepped forward without thinking and told her, as calmly as I could manage, that there was a man near one of the cars acting strangely, and that she might want to wait inside with me until police arrived, rather than walk out alone. She looked at me for a moment, clearly assessing whether I was the strange one, and then looked out through the glass doors toward where I was pointing, saw him standing there, motionless beside my car, and came to stand next to me without another word. We waited together. Neither of us said much. I remembered the specific comfort of simply not being alone anymore, even with a total stranger, even with the actual danger still standing exactly where it had been the entire time.
The trooper arrived a few minutes later, pulling in slowly, light bar active but not the siren, approaching the man near my car with a flashlight raised and a hand resting near his weapon without drawing it. I watched through the glass as the trooper spoke to him. I could not hear the exchange, but I could see the man's posture shift almost immediately from the stillness he had maintained the entire time I'd been watching him into something more agitated, more defensive. Within a couple of minutes, the trooper had him against the hood of my car, hands behind his back. A second trooper arrived shortly after, and I was finally able to walk out and give my own statement. The man, they told me, matched the description given in 2 separate reports from that same rest stop earlier that same night, one from a woman who had returned to her car to find her door unlocked and slightly ajar, despite being certain she had locked it, and another from a trucker who had noticed the same man loitering near multiple vehicles for an extended period without ever actually approaching a driver directly. A search conducted after his arrest found a Slim Jim-style tool commonly used for manually unlocking older vehicle door mechanisms, along with a small flashlight and a pair of gloves in his jacket pocket.
He was charged with attempted vehicle theft and, given the pattern across multiple reports that same night, an additional charge related to loitering with intent. I later learned through a follow-up call from the trooper who had responded that he had a prior record involving similar incidents at rest stops and truck stops across 2 other states, though I was not given full details of those cases. I do not know to this day exactly what his plan was for me specifically, whether he intended simply to steal my car once I was far enough away, or whether his intentions, had I actually walked up and unlocked that door with him standing beside it, were something considerably worse. I have decided deliberately not to spend much energy imagining the answer to that question. What matters is that I did not find out, because I trusted the wrongness of that stillness the moment I saw it, rather than talking myself into a reasonable explanation the way I very easily could have. If you drive long distances at night and stop at rest areas the way nearly everyone eventually does, I want you to take one specific thing from what happened to me. Before you walk back out to your car, actually look at it from a distance before you're close enough that turning back feels awkward or embarrassing. If anything or anyone is near it that you cannot immediately explain, do not keep walking toward it out of simple momentum or social discomfort. Turn around, go back inside, call for help immediately, and let it come to you in a place with light and other people rather than walking directly toward whatever is waiting in the dark. I got a coffee that night, and a wedding memory I still think about fondly, and also, almost, something else entirely. Something I only avoided because I let an instinct override my own embarrassment about possibly overreacting. Trust that instinct. It is very rarely wrong, and the cost of being wrong about trusting it is nothing at all. The cost of ignoring it, even once, can be everything. I still make that same drive sometimes, for work, for family, for the occasional wedding of a friend who hasn't yet learned to schedule things at a reasonable hour. I still stop at rest areas when I need to. I have simply changed the way I walk back to my car afterward, slower, more deliberate, eyes doing that same automatic scan I always did, except now I actually let myself act on what that scan finds, instead of talking myself past it the way I so nearly did that night.